He called me Barren while the whole table laughed. That night, I buried my tears and let a vow. By dawn, his crown trembled under my silence. And by my rebirth, I carried his ruin. The dining hall was lit with soft amber light, the chandeliers swaying ever so slightly as if they too were nervous. The silverware clinked against porcelain, laughter filled the long table, and servants glided silently between chairs. To anyone looking in from the outside, it would seem like a perfect evening, wine poured without pause, plates heavy with roasted meats and fragrant bread, my husband's voice carrying like he owned every corner of the room. But beneath the glow and chatter, I felt the weight of eyes on me, waiting for me to falter, waiting for me to break. I sat across from him, my husband, his glass raised high as though he was about to make another one of his effortless speeches. He smiled at the guests first, then at me, but his smile was a blade, sharp, gleaming, meant to cut. I felt my fingers tighten on the edge of my napkin. He leaned back in his chair, the master of the stage, his voice dipping into that calm, deliberate tone he used when he wanted the world to listen. My wife, he began, gesturing toward me with his glass, is many things. Beautiful, obedient, a fine hostess, his pause was deliberate, and already I knew something cruel was coming. But Barren. The word rang out like a bell in the silence that followed. Fork stilled. Eyes flicked toward me, then quickly away, as if to avoid being caught staring. His smile widened as he took a long sip of his wine. Then laughter returned, louder this time, rolling like a tide across the table. They weren't laughing at the joke, because it wasn't funny, they were laughing because he had given them permission. My cheeks burned, though I forced my lips into a small, practiced smile. Inside, my chest tightened until I could barely breathe. I folded the napkin in my lap again and again until the edges frayed. Across from me, his eyes lingered, waiting to see if I would cry, if I would fight, if I would give him more entertainment. I gave him nothing. Come now, one of the guests said lightly, raising her glass to ease the sting. Surely there are other ways to build a legacy. My husband chuckled, a deep, cruel sound. Legacies deserve heirs. Otherwise, what are we but dust waiting to scatter? He clinked his glass with hers, sealing his triumph. I excused myself moments later, rising with careful grace even though my knees threatened to buckle. I could feel their stares on my back as I left the hall, whispers already buzzing like flies. I walked quickly, my breath sharp, my vision blurred by unshed tears. When I reached the corridor, I pressed my hand to the wall, the cool stone grounding me as my body shook. In the solitude of my chamber, I collapsed into the chair by the window. The city outside glittered with lights, people moving below with laughter and purpose, unaware of the storm that had just torn through me. My hands trembled as I pulled open the drawer of my desk, revealing a sealed envelope I had hidden days ago. Inside lay the letter, the proof that everything he said tonight was not only cruel but a lie. The letter had come from the physician I had trusted in secret, the only one who had dared to test me outside my husband's reach. You are healthy, the note had said. More than healthy. It is not you. Those 4 words cut deeper than anything my husband had spoken. Not me. I remembered the physician's face, grave and sympathetic. He had leaned forward, lowering his voice. It is your husband who cannot give you children. I advise you, for your safety, keep this to yourself. The paper in my hands trembled now, but my resolve hardened. He had made me a spectacle, a joke to be shared over wine and roasted lamb. He thought I was powerless, a woman trapped beneath his shadow. But here, in my hands, was a weapon sharper than his smile, more enduring than his laughter. The door creaked open. My heart lurched as he stepped inside, closing it with deliberate calm. He looked at me with that same smirk, as if my shame belonged to him to control. You left too soon, he said, his voice low, playful. They wondered where their hostess went. I rose slowly, clutching the letter hidden in my sleeve. You humiliated me. He tilted his head, pretending confusion. Did I? Or did I speak the truth everyone already knows? He stepped closer, his presence filling the room. Better they laugh with me than whisper behind your back. My nails bit into my palm, the paper crumpling softly against my skin. The truth? I whispered. Yes, he said, leaning close, his breath thick with wine. The truth is you'll never give me what I want. And without that, what use are you? I felt something inside me snap, not a thread of weakness, but the final tie that had bound me to him. Slowly, I drew the letter from my sleeve and laid it on the desk between us. His eyes flicked down, curious, still confident. What's this? He asked. The truth, I said, my voice steadier now, colder. He reached for the paper, unfolding it with casual arrogance. But as his eyes scanned the lines, the smirk faltered. His brows drew together, his mouth tightening. He read it again, slower this time, as if the words might rearrange themselves into something less damning. I stepped closer, watching the color drain from his face. It's not me, I said softly. It's you. He slammed the letter down on the desk, his jaw clenching. For a moment, silence stretched between us, heavy and dangerous. Then he laughed, sharp and brittle. Who would believe you? He asked. You, with your tears and your fragile little stories? I met his gaze without flinching. They don't need to believe me. They only need to see you squirm. His hand shot out, gripping my arm hard enough to bruise. Careful, he hissed. You think one letter can save you? Destroy me? You're still nothing without me. But his eyes betrayed him. For the first time, I saw fear flicker there, faint but undeniable. He knew the walls he had built were no longer unbreakable. I pulled my arm free, holding his gaze until he looked away first. By sunrise, I said, my voice quiet but unyielding, they will know who truly carries the ruin in this marriage. His face hardened, his silence louder than any threat. He turned sharply, leaving the room with the letter still lying open on the desk. I watched him go, my chest rising with something that wasn't quite triumph yet, but close. The proof was mine. The ruin was his. And the dawn was only hours away. The halls were quiet after dinner, but quiet in that dangerous way, like the silence before a storm. Candles flickered low against the stone walls, and every shadow seemed alive, stretching long and watching. I had meant to return to my room, to lock the door and breathe in peace after what happened at the table. But the faint murmur of voices carried down the corridor, sharp and clipped, like blades clashing in the dark. My steps slowed, my heart tightening. I wasn't supposed to hear. That much I knew. I pressed myself against the cool stone, the whispering just ahead behind a half-open door. My husband's voice came first, low but commanding. She's slipping. I pushed too far tonight. There was a scrape of a chair, then another voice, female, light, almost amused. You wanted to humiliate her, and you did. They laughed. They'll remember that more than anything. I knew the voice instantly. It was hers. The woman I had suspected for months. His mistress. My stomach turned cold, but I forced myself to stay still, to listen. She has that letter, my husband muttered, anger leaking through his words. I saw it in her hands. There was silence, then a laugh soft as silk. So? Who would believe her? You built her up as fragile, broken. If she speaks, they'll only see jealousy. I gripped the edge of the wall so hard my knuckles ached. The letter. He knew. I thought of it lying on the desk, his eyes scanning it, the moment his mask slipped. He hadn't burned it. He hadn't destroyed it. He was already planning how to twist it. She's not as weak as she pretends, he said finally, his voice colder now. I saw it in her eyes tonight. She wants to fight. The mistress stepped closer, I could hear the faint rustle of her gown. Then fight her first. End it before she gathers courage. I backed away, my pulse hammering so loudly I feared they'd AR it. My heel caught on the rug, and I froze, breath trapped in my chest. But the voices inside didn't stop. They went on, plotting, each word driving deeper. She doesn't know her place, my husband hissed. By morning, I'll remind her. I turned, every muscle screaming for me to run. My hands shook as I clutched my skirts, my breath shallow as I slipped down the corridor. The walls seemed to close in, every step louder than the last. At the corner, I paused, steadying myself, willing my heart to slow. Their words echoed in my head, heavy with threat. "End it before she gathers courage." When I reached my chamber, I bolted the door, sliding down against it. My body trembled, not from fear alone but from the sharp, searing anger rising in me. He had already painted me as barren, broken. Now he wanted to finish me before I could strike back. I rose, crossing to the desk where the letter still lay. My hand hovered over it, the ink faintly smudged from where he had touched it. Proof, undeniable proof, yet in his hands it could become just another weapon turned against me. My fingers closed around the paper, folding it carefully. I slipped it beneath the lining of my jewelry box, deeper than before. They would not take it from me. The knock on the door was soft, almost polite. My breath caught. I didn't answer. "Wife," he said, his voice calm now, almost soothing. "May I come in?" I clenched my fists, my body rigid. He tried the handle, found it locked. His chuckle was low, controlled. Locking me out? What a dangerous little game. I said nothing. Silence was the only power I had in that moment. After a pause, his voice sharpened. "Whatever you think you have, it won't save you. By sunrise, you'll see. They'll all see." His footsteps faded, but the threat hung in the air, heavier than the silence that followed. I pressed my forehead to the door, the wood cool against my skin. My chest rose and fell in quick bursts. He knew about the letter. He had his mistress whispering poison into his ear. And he thought by morning I would be finished. But as I stood there, breathing through the fear, something shifted. I was done waiting for his blows. I was done being his spectacle, his target, his shadow. I had proof, and I had truth. More than that, I had his fear. For the first time, I had seen it flicker in his eyes, and I knew he was not as untouchable as he pretended. I moved back to the desk, pulling out a fresh sheet of parchment. My hand trembled as I dipped the pen in ink, but my strokes grew steadier with every word I wrote. There were people who needed to see the truth, people who had bowed to his charm but would crumble if they knew the secret he had buried. He wanted to remind me of my place by morning. I would remind him of his ruin instead. The night stretched long, each candle burning lower, but I didn't stop. I wrote with the fire of everything he had stolen, every insult he had thrown, every tear I had swallowed. By the time the last candle guttered out, I had not only a letter in my hand but a weapon in my soul. Somewhere down the hall, I heard laughter, his laughter, mingled with hers. It was careless, cruel, echoing in the stillness of night. My grip tightened on the paper. Let him laugh. Let him believe I was broken, finished. Because when the sun rose, and the whispers he thought were his weapon turned against him, the world would know who truly carried the ruin. And this time it would not be me. The night should have been quiet. The embers in the fireplace glowed faintly, the curtains stirred in a soft draft, and the heavy silence of our chamber pressed down like a weight. I lay still, staring at the ceiling, my body rigid beneath the covers. He hadn't come to bed yet, though I could hear his voice down the hall earlier, low and amused, mixed with hers. Every part of me wanted to believe he would come alone, that even in his cruelty there was a line he wouldn't cross. But when the door finally opened, the shadow that spilled across the floor was not his alone. I shifted slightly, pretending to be half asleep. The scent reached me first, sweet perfume, foreign and cloying, a woman's fragrance where only mine should linger. Then came the soft laugh, not mine, not even muffled with shame, but open and bold, as if she belonged here. My heart pounded against my ribs, my palms slick against the sheets. "Careful," my husband's voice murmured, a mockery of tenderness. "She's asleep." The mistress giggled, light as glass breaking. "She sleeps while you live." How fitting. I kept my breath steady, though my throat ached with the effort. Rage burned in me, but I swallowed it, burying it under layers of stillness. My husband's footsteps crossed the room, closer, deliberate. I felt the mattress dip as he sat, the weight of him pressing into the bed we once shared. My fingers curled tight beneath the blanket, nails biting into my palms. "You humiliated her enough tonight," the mistress whispered, her voice dripping with satisfaction. "They'll never forget." "She'll learn her place," he said, and I could feel the smirk in his words. "And if not, we'll remind her again." I opened my eyes just a fraction, the faintest slit, enough to see their silhouettes in the dim glow of the fire. She stood beside the bed, her figure outlined in soft light, a predator's smile painted on her lips. Her hand brushed his shoulder, possessive, unashamed. The sight made my stomach twist, but I forced myself to lie still. Let them believe I was powerless. Let them believe I had surrendered. That belief would be their downfall. "Doesn't she hear us?" the mistress asked suddenly, her eyes flicking toward me. "She hears nothing," he said smoothly, his gaze lingering on my face. For a moment, I thought he was testing me, waiting for a flinch, a twitch. I gave him nothing. Her smirk widened. "Good. Then let her sleep in the ruins while we plan." Something inside me hardened then. Not just anger, but resolve. They thought I was finished, a silent shadow in my own home. But I had the letter, the truth, the proof that his cruelty was built on lies. And now I had this, the audacity of her standing here, in my place, in my bed. I shifted just enough to murmur, my voice faint, trembling but clear. "I'm not asleep." The room froze. His body stiffened beside me, her smile faltered, and the silence that followed was sharp as broken glass. I sat up slowly, pulling the blanket around my shoulders, my eyes fixed on hers. "Get out," I said. The mistress tilted her head, feigning innocence. "Out? Why, I was only keeping him company." My husband stood, anger flashing in his eyes, but his voice stayed calm, controlled. "You misunderstand. I understand perfectly," I cut in, my voice shaking but loud enough to fill the chamber. "You brought her here. To our bed. And you thought I would stay silent, as always." The mistress laughed, but it was thinner now, brittle. "What will you do? Cry?" I stepped out of bed, my bare feet cold against the stone floor. My hands shook, but I held her gaze, unflinching. "No. I will not cry. I will not whisper. By morning, the truth will belong to me." My husband's face darkened, his jaw clenched tight. "Careful," he warned. "Words have consequences." "So do actions," I replied. My voice was steadier now, firmer with each breath. "And yours will destroy you." The mistress glanced at him, searching his face for reassurance, but he said nothing. For the first time, the silence was his, not mine. I turned, walking toward the desk where the jewelry box lay hidden. My fingers brushed the lid, not opening it, not yet, but reminding him of what I held. His eyes followed, sharp, calculating. He knew. He remembered. And in that moment, the balance shifted. I turned back to them, the firelight throwing my shadow long across the floor. "You brought her here," I said again, each word deliberate. "You let her stand where only I should stand. And for that, you will pay." The mistress scoffed, though her voice wavered. "You think anyone will believe you over him? He is power. You are nothing." I stepped closer, until I was inches from her, my eyes locked on hers. "Then watch what nothing can do." She faltered, just slightly, her smirk flickering before returning, thinner now, less certain. My husband reached for her arm, guiding her toward the door. His calm mask was slipping, cracks forming where arrogance had always been. "We'll speak of this tomorrow," he said tight. "Why?" his eyes never leaving mine. "No," I answered, my voice cold, final. "Tomorrow, the world will speak of you." They left together, her perfume trailing like poison in the air. The door shut, and I stood alone in the silence, my heart pounding, my body trembling from the storm of it all. But beneath the tremor was steel. I went back to the desk, lifting the jewelry box and pulling out the folded letter. My hand steadied as I held it, the firelight glowing against the ink. Proof. Truth. Power. I whispered into the empty room, the words sharp, a promise carved into the night. The mistress's shadow may have fallen across my bed, but by dawn, it will fall across his ruin. The hall was dressed in glitter and glass. Candles burned in tall silver stands, chandeliers dripped light across polished marble floors, and mirrors lined the walls, catching every shimmer of gown and jewel. Guests laughed, glasses clinked, and music from the strings in the corner floated warm and sweet. To anyone looking in, it was a celebration, grand, elegant, flawless. But to me, it felt like a stage set for ruin. I stood near the mirrored wall, a glass of wine in my hand, my reflection staring back with painted lips and steady eyes. I had practiced that look in the privacy of my room, composed, untouchable, the wife of a powerful man. But inside, my heart beat too fast, each pulse a warning. He was across the room, my husband, his hand resting lightly on the arm of the woman beside him. She leaned in close, laughing at something he said, her ruby necklace catching the light as if to mock me. People noticed. Their eyes flicked from her to me, whispers caught beneath their smiles. I felt the heat rising in my chest, the trembling of my fingers against the stem of my glass. I lifted it, pretending to sip, forcing my hand to still. I couldn't give them the show they were waiting for. He saw me then. Across the crowd, his gaze found mine. He didn't flinch, didn't look away. Instead, his mouth curved in that thin smile, the one that promised cruelty dressed as charm. And then, as if daring me, he bent his head closer to hers, whispering something against her ear. Her laughter rang louder, and heads turned to watch. I looked back at my reflection. For a moment, I didn't recognize the woman staring at me. Her eyes glistened with unshed tears, her lips quivered despite the painted calm. The glass in my hand shook, the reflection trembling with it. And then, with a sharp snap, it happened, the stem of the glass broke in my grip. Wine spilled across my gown, dark red blooming like blood. The sound silenced the chatter around me, heads turning, eyes widening. I froze, staring at the shards in my hand, the sting of glass biting into my skin. A servant rushed forward, but the damage was done. The crowd had seen. The whispers rose, fast and sharp. My reflection in the nearest mirror looked shattered, streaked with wine and shadow. He crossed the room then, not quickly, not with concern, but with deliberate calm. Every step was calculated. The mistress followed behind, her smile small and satisfied, like a secret victory. He stopped before me, his voice loud enough for those nearest to hear. "Careless," he said, glancing at the shards. "You've always had fragile hands." A ripple of laughter moved through the guests, quiet but cruel. My cheeks burned hot, my body stiff with humiliation. I pressed the napkin a servant offered against my palm, though the cut was shallow. My husband's eyes held mine, cold and triumphant. "Shall we excuse ourselves?" he asked, but it wasn't a question. His hand touched my arm, guiding me away from the crowd. The mistress lingered where she was, her gaze following us, smug and unshaken. He led me down the corridor, his grip firm, his stride unyielding. When we were out of sight, he let go, his mask slipping just enough for his voice to sharpen. "You embarrass me," he hissed. I stared at him, my voice breaking before I steadied it. "You humiliated me first. Before them all." His jaw tightened, his eyes narrowing. "You think they care?" They laughed because I gave them permission. "You, with your trembling glass, your silence, they'll never respect you." The sting of his words cut deeper than the glass had. I pressed the napkin tighter against my palm, the wine still staining the silk of my gown. "You wanted me to break," I said quietly. "You wanted them to see me as weak." He stepped closer, his presence overwhelming, his smile sharp again. And they did. They saw what I wanted them to see. A barren wife. A broken reflection. My throat tightened, but I forced myself to meet his gaze. "And what happens when they see the truth instead?" His smirk faltered, just slightly, but he covered it with a scoff. Truth? You have nothing. I thought of the letter hidden in my chamber, of the whispers I had overheard, of the cracks I had already seen in his mask. I thought of the mistress standing bold at his side, and the way the crowd had looked at me, waiting for me to collapse, to vanish. No more. I straightened, my voice steady now, colder. You've built your power on lies. But lies don't last forever. His eyes darkened, the calm slipping. Careful, wife. You're treading ground you can't survive. I stepped past him, refusing to let him block my path. No, I said, my voice firm, final. It's you who won't survive when the mirror cracks. I walked back toward the hall, the whispers already rising behind the doors. The stain on my gown marked me, but I didn't care. Let them see. Let them whisper. Because the reflection they thought was broken wasn't mine, it was his. The night stretched long and heavy, the fire in my chamber burning low. I sat before the flames, my gown still marked with wine stains from the humiliation earlier, my hands raw from clenching the napkin against glass cuts. I should have been weeping, once, I would have been. But the tears had run dry, leaving only heat in their place, heat that turned every sob into ash in my chest. Ash was lighter. It did not weigh me down. Ash could scatter, but it could also choke. The jewelry box sat on the desk, closed, its false bottom hiding the letter that could ruin him. I ran my fingers across the wood, tracing the edges, feeling the secret it carried. For so long I had hidden it like a shameful thing, afraid of what it meant. Tonight, it no longer felt like a burden. Tonight, it felt like a blade. A knock broke the silence. Firm, unhurried. I didn't move. A moment later, his voice carried through the door, calm and smooth. Wife, open the door. I stayed still. My pulse quickened, but I held my breath. He knocked again, sharper this time. You've made quite a spectacle tonight. The whisper spread faster than I intended. A pause. Then a chuckle. You should thank me. At least they noticed you. My fingers tightened on the box. He always twisted the knife with a smile. Slowly, I rose, crossing the room with measured steps. I opened the door just enough to meet his eyes. They gleamed in the dim corridor light, cold and calculating. May I come in? He asked, though his tone made it clear he wasn't asking at all. I let the door swing wider. He stepped inside, his gaze sliding across the room as if he owned every corner. He stopped near the fire, warming his hands, as though we were a couple settling into quiet conversation. You embarrassed me, he said finally, glancing at the wine stains on my dress. Do you know how fragile you looked with that broken glass in your hand? A reflection of exactly what you are. I lifted my chin, though my hands trembled at my sides. Fragile things can cut too. He turned, studying me with faint amusement. Careful. You've been playing with sharp edges lately. His eyes flicked toward the desk. That letter, you've grown bold enough to use it? I felt my stomach twist, but I did not look away. It tells the truth. A truth you've hidden while you made me your stage joke. He smiled, slow and dangerous. The truth is a matter of who tells it. You, the barren wife, shaking with glass in her hands? Or me, the man they already believe? The fire popped, and the room seemed to close in around us. My heart hammered, but my voice came steady. If you were so certain, you wouldn't be standing here. You're afraid. His eyes darkened, though the smile stayed. He stepped closer, lowering his voice. Afraid? No. I'm calculating. I know exactly how much rope to give you before you hang yourself. With it. I swallowed, forcing myself to hold his gaze. And what if I use it to hang you instead? For a flicker of a second, something broke in his expression. His hand twitched, his mask nearly slipped, but then he leaned back, smirk curling again. Then we'll see who believes the executioner's wife. The words hit like ice. He wasn't just threatening me, He was reminding me of the gallows, of how easily reputations and lives were crushed under his command. The mistress's perfume still lingered faintly in the air, as though she'd left her mark even without being here. I thought of her laughter in our bedchamber, of her shadow falling where mine should have been. My chest burned, but this time not with sorrow. With resolve. "You may have their ears now," I said, my voice firm, "but I have what you'll never have again, the truth in my hands, and the patience to wait until the right eyes see it." He stepped closer, until his breath warmed my face. His hand brushed my cheek, almost tender, but his fingers pressed too hard, a warning disguised as affection. "If you move against me, you'll regret it. Secrets cut both ways." I jerked back, pushing his hand aside. "Then let them cut. I am done bleeding in silence." The firelight caught the edge of my reflection in the window. I looked at myself, wine-stained, bruised, trembling, but my eyes no longer carried defeat. They carried fire. His calm slipped then, just for a heartbeat. His jaw tightened, his gaze flicked once more toward the desk. He knew I wouldn't hide forever. He knew the blade was turning. Without another word, he straightened, smoothing his coat, the mask snapping back into place. "Sleep well," he said lightly, though his voice held steel. "Tomorrow, we'll see who still stands." He left, the door closing softly behind him. The chamber seemed colder without his presence, but the silence was different now. Not suffocating, alive, humming with possibility. I crossed to the desk, opening the jewelry box. My fingers pulled the folded letter free, the ink catching the glow of the fire. I pressed it flat against the wood, smoothing the crease. My tears had dried hours ago. Now all that remained was this, ash that no longer clung to me, and secrets sharp enough to carve him down. I whispered into the empty room, the words of vow. Tears dried into ashes, secrets into weapons. "And when the sun rises, I'll use them all," ChatGPT said. The morning broke with pale light spilling through the curtains, soft and golden as if the world outside had no idea of the war raging inside these walls. I sat at the edge of the bed, my hands folded in my lap, staring at the faint bruises his grip had left on my arm the night before. The ache was sharp, but it wasn't what made my chest feel heavy. It was the silence after, the way he had walked out of my chamber certain I would never move against him. He believed he had buried me with humiliation. He was wrong. I rose slowly, pulling on a fresh gown, the fabric cool against my skin. The stain from last night's spilled wine had already been scrubbed away by servants, but I could still feel the weight of it, like an invisible mark on my body. When I caught my reflection in the mirror, I didn't see the broken woman he wanted everyone to see. My eyes looked hollow from sleeplessness, but there was a spark there too, one that he hadn't noticed, or perhaps hadn't believed could survive. The corridor outside buzzed faintly with life, servants whispering, doors opening and closing, footsteps soft against stone. Their voices dropped when I passed, as though they weren't sure whether to pity me or fear me. I kept my head high, each step deliberate. If I walked as though I carried nothing, no one would see that I carried everything. At the far end of the hall, I heard laughter. His laughter. I slowed, the sound sharp against my ears. It was followed by the softer murmur of hers, the mistress who clung to him as if she had already taken my place. I turned the corner before I could stop myself, and there they were, standing too close, his hand brushing her wrist, her smile gleaming as if she had won. He noticed me first. His expression didn't falter. He smiled as though nothing were wrong, as though this was ordinary. "Ah," he said lightly, "up so early. Perhaps you've decided to put last night behind you?" Her eyes slid toward me, mocking. "It was only a broken glass. Surely you won't let such a small thing linger." I felt my nails bite into my palms, but my voice came calm. "Some things may break quietly," I said, "but they leave sharp edges behind." He laughed, shaking his head as if I were being dramatic, as if I were a child sulking. "You hear that?" he said to her. Always with her metaphors. Always making herself tragic. The mistress smiled sweetly, tilting her head. Perhaps she enjoys the attention. My chest tightened, but I swallowed the pain, forcing it deeper, locking it where it couldn't betray me. You mistake silence for weakness, I said, meeting her gaze. And cruelty for strength. He stepped closer, his smile fading into something harder. His hand brushed my arm, not gentle, but firm enough to remind me of the night before. Enough, he said under his breath. Go back to your chamber before you say something you regret. For a heartbeat, I considered retreating, swallowing my words like always. But then I saw the satisfaction on her face, the way she leaned closer to him as if she already owned what was mine. And something inside me shifted. I would not walk away this time. I looked him in the eye, my voice low but steady. The only one who will regret this is you. His grip tightened, and his jaw clenched, but before he could respond, another voice echoed down the corridor. One of the elder counselors stepped into view, gray-haired and stern, his pace slowing as he caught sight of us. My husband immediately dropped my arm, stepping back, his mask sliding neatly into place. Good morning, he greeted smoothly, his tone all charm again. Just a small family matter. The counselor's eyes lingered on me, sharp and watchful. He said nothing, only bowed his head slightly and continued on. But I saw it, the flicker of curiosity, the note of suspicion. And I knew in that moment that even if I had buried my pain, it had not gone unnoticed. When the counselor was gone, my husband leaned closer, his voice sharp with warning. Do not test me in front of others. I smiled faintly, though my heart was racing. You should be more careful. They're beginning to see what I see. His eyes narrowed, but before he could answer, I turned and walked away, my steps steady even though my knees felt weak. I didn't look back, not at him, not at her. My chest burned, but it was no longer from humiliation. It was from the knowledge that I had struck something he hadn't expected, a crack in the walls he had built around me. Back in my chamber, I closed the door and leaned against it, my breath rushing out in a shudder. My hand shook as I opened the jewelry box again, pulling the letter from its hiding place. I spread it across the desk, tracing the physician's words with trembling fingers. It is not you. I whispered the line aloud, steadying myself with each word. Not me. Him. He could laugh, he could parade his mistress, he could twist every look and every whisper. But the truth was still mine. I folded the letter carefully, tucking it into a smaller pouch that I slipped beneath my gown, close to my skin. My pain had been buried deep, but it was no longer heavy, it was sharp, weaponized, waiting for the right moment. A sound drew my attention. Voices again, faint through the wall, servants speaking as they cleaned the hall. Did you see them? One whispered. Together, bold as daylight. And she looked at them without flinching. Perhaps she's finally had enough, the other replied. Their words lit something inside me. Enough. Yes. I had buried my pain, but not my power. And when the time came, when the eyes of the crowd were watching as they had last night, I would not break again. I walked to the window, looking out at the rising sun. Its light touched the rooftops, gilding them with fire. I pressed my hand against the glass, my reflection staring back, still bruised, still stained, but no longer broken. Behind me, the chamber door creaked open without warning. His voice slid into the room, low and smooth. We're not finished. I turned, the pouch hidden beneath my gown, the true th pressed close to my skin. My lips curved into the faintest of smiles. No, I said quietly. We're just beginning. The library smelled of dust and old paper, the air thick with silence. Shelves stretched high, lined with ledgers that chronicled generations of wealth, power, and lies. The family records had always been his kingdom, guarded like scripture, numbers and signatures stacked like walls to keep me small. But tonight, I stood alone before them, my candle trembling in its holder, my heart pounding as though the ledgers themselves could hear it. The desk at the center loomed heavy with books, their bindings cracked from years of use. He often sat there, pen scratching, eyes narrowing, lips curling with smug satisfaction as he balanced fortunes like a man playing God. I had never dared touch his records before. But now, I needed them. Somewhere within these books was the space where he had hidden the truth, where he had written me out and carved his mistress in. My fingers brushed the spines, pausing when I found one thicker than the rest, the leather worn smooth at the edges. I slid it free, the weight almost pulling me down. Setting it on the desk, I opened it carefully, the pages whispering as they turned. Names, dates, transactions, rows upon rows of ink, lifeless and cold. My eyes blurred, my chest tight. What was I even looking for? Then I saw it. A folded slip of parchment wedged deep between two pages, not quite flush, its edges frayed from being hidden too long. My breath caught. With trembling hands, I pulled it free. It wasn't part of a ledger. It was a letter. The seal was broken, the wax chipped, as if someone had read it in secret and shoved it back when finished. My throat tightened as I unfolded it, my eyes racing across the familiar handwriting. It was the physician's script. My heart pounded louder with every word. Your wife is fertile and sound. The fault lies elsewhere. Conceal this as you see fit. I gripped the letter until my knuckles ached. Proof. Buried here, among numbers and estates, hidden so no one would ever question his story. He had known all along. He had carried this knowledge like a shield, while he turned me into the barren wife, the disgrace, the broken vessel. He had laughed at dinner while holding this truth in his pocket. My body shook as footsteps echoed in the hall. I stuffed the letter into my sleeve just as the door creaked open. He stepped inside, calm as always, his expression unreadable. "What are you doing here?" he asked, voice low but sharp, the kind of tone meant to slice without raising volume. I closed the ledger quickly, my breath uneven. I was looking for answers. His smile came slow, practiced. And what answers could a woman possibly find in numbers and ink? I held his gaze, my sleeve pressed tight against my side. "The ones you buried." He stepped closer, circling me like a predator sizing its prey. "You think because you stumbled into my library you suddenly have power? These books don't speak for you. They speak for me." I felt the letter burn against my skin, as if it wanted to leap into the fire, to scream its truth. My voice trembled, but I forced the words out. "Maybe not the books. But what they hide does." His eyes narrowed. He knew. I saw it in the flicker of recognition, the flash of anger quickly masked with a smirk. "You found it." Silence stretched, broken only by the crackle of the candle flame. My chest heaved, my hands shaking. "You let them laugh at me. You called me barren while this, I lifted my sleeve slightly, the corner of the letter peeking out, proved otherwise. He chuckled softly, shaking his head. "And who will believe you? The wife I've painted as fragile? The woman who trembles holding a glass? Or me, the man they already worship?" I stepped closer, the rage rising hot in my chest. "The difference is that now I know. And I'm not trembling anymore." His smirk hardened, his jaw tightening. He leaned in, voice dropping to a hiss. "Do you think one piece of paper will save you? I can burn it before dawn." I met his eyes, steady at last. "Then burn it. But the truth will still live on my lips. And you can't silence me forever." He froze, the mask slipping just enough to reveal what I had been waiting to see: fear. Not much, not enough for him to lose control, but a spark of it, faint and real. He straightened quickly, covering it with another scoff, but I had seen it. He turned, slamming the ledger shut with finality. "You've had your little discovery. Enjoy it while it lasts." He moved toward the door, pausing with his hand on the frame. "By tomorrow, they'll forget your tears. But they'll never forget what I decide to tell them." I clutched the letter tight against my chest, my pulse racing. He thought his lies could outlast the truth, that his control was absolute. But this paper had survived in silence, waiting. And now, it had found me. As the door closed behind him, I whispered into the dark, my words a vow sharper than any blade. "A letter hidden beneath your ledger will bury you. Not me." The carriage wheels rattled over the cobblestones, each turn carrying me closer to the hall where every eye would be waiting. Outside, the night glittered with lanterns, the city humming with laughter and music. Inside, my hands gripped the folds of my gown so tightly the fabric wrinkled beneath my fingers. Tonight, there would be no hiding in shadows, no silent tears behind locked doors. Tonight, I would walk into the gala not as his broken wife, but as the woman holding the truth that could undo him. The door swung open, and a servant offered his hand. I stepped down slowly, my heels clicking against the stone, my gown catching the light with every move. A hush seemed to ripple through the entrance as I crossed into the hall. The chandeliers poured gold over polished marble floors, jewels sparkled at throats and wrists, and music swelled like a tide. People turned to look. They always did, but tonight, their stares lingered differently. I carried myself higher, every step deliberate, as though I had nothing to fear. But he knew better. Across the room, my husband stood at the center of it all, glass in hand, laughter curling from his lips. His mistress was beside him, draped in crimson silk, her smile wide, her arm brushing his. Their performance was flawless, designed to remind everyone of his charm and her boldness. Yet when his eyes found mine, something faltered. He masked it quickly, but I saw it, the flicker of unease. I walked toward him, the crowd parting like a tide. Whispers rose around me, carried by silk and lace, but I didn't flinch. My heart hammered, but I forced my chin higher, the letter pressed safe against my skin beneath the gown. With every step, I thought of the words inked on that page. Not me. Him. Each syllable was a weapon I carried like a blade. Wife, he greeted when I reached him, his voice smooth, loud enough for others to hear. You honor us with your presence tonight. His smile gleamed, but it didn't reach his eyes. I returned the smile, small and sharp. How could I miss it? You've made such a spectacle of me already. The mistress laughed, feigning innocence. You mustn't hold grudges. The world admires strength, not sulking. I turned to her, my smile never slipping. And yet here you stand in another woman's place, mistaking theft for victory. The air tightened around us, the nearby guests leaning in, pretending not to listen but straining for every word. His jaw flaxed, but he chuckled as if amused. She's fiery tonight, isn't she? He said, addressing the crowd rather than me. Perhaps I should thank her physician for the spark. My blood ran cold. He was baiting me, twisting even the hint of truth into mockery. I steadied my breath, my fingers brushing the hidden letter through the fabric. Not yet. Not here. But soon. I leaned closer, my voice low enough for him alone. Careful. I'm done swallowing your lies. His eyes sharpened, his smile thinning. You think you can wound me in my own hall? I pulled back, turning toward the nearest mirror along the wall. My reflection stared back, composed, regal, untrembling. For the first time, I believed it. I wasn't here to collapse beneath his cruelty. I was here to show him what fear looked like when it finally shifted. He raised his glass, forcing a toast, the crowd falling quiet. To legacies, he declared, his voice ringing across the room. May we all leave. Behind heirs worthy of our names. It was deliberate. A strike meant to cut me down again, to remind them all of the lie he had crafted. Laughter rippled softly, polite and poisonous. I lifted my own glass, though my hand trembled only slightly. My voice carried, clear and cold. And may the truth outlive the lies told to protect them. Gasps echoed faintly, the music faltered. His gaze snapped to me, hard as stone. The mistress stiffened, her smile cracking for the first time. I held the glass high, my reflection glittering in every mirror along the walls, multiplied 100 times. Careful, he hissed under his breath, the mask slipping just enough for me to see the fury underneath. Afraid? I whispered back, my lips barely moving. For a heartbeat, silence stretched. The crowd shifted, sensing something beneath the polished surface, though they couldn't yet see it. He forced a laugh, dismissing my words, raising his glass again. But his hand shook. It was slight, almost invisible, but I saw it. And I smiled. The music resumed, chatter swelled, but the air had changed. Whispers traveled quickly, eyes flicked between us, and I knew the seed had been planted. Tonight, I didn't just walk into his gala. Tonight, I walked in carrying the one thing he couldn't mask with charm or cruelty. I walked in wearing his fear. The storm outside rattled the windows, but inside the chamber the fire burned low, shadows stretching long across the walls. I sat at the table with my hands folded tightly, the letter hidden beneath the folds of my gown. My pulse throbbed in my throat. He had been gone since the gala, smiling and bowing, pretending nothing had cracked in the air between us. But now the echo of his steps came down the corridor, steady and unhurried, and my stomach tightened like a fist. The door opened without a knock. He entered as if the room already belonged to him, his coat damp from the rain, his face calm in that dangerous way I had come to recognize. He shut the door behind him, the click of the lock soft but sharp. Then he turned, meeting my eyes with a look that made the fire seem colder. "You've been busy," he said quietly, almost kindly. I forced my voice not to waver. "Busy surviving." He chuckled, moving closer. "And what a performance you gave. The whispers haven't stopped since last night. They say you walked into the gala as if you carried a crown." He leaned against the chair opposite me, his fingers drumming the wood. "But we both know appearances can deceive." I kept my hands clasped, though they ached from the pressure. "And lies don't last forever." His smile sharpened. "Ah. There it is. The word again, lies." He leaned in, lowering his voice as if confiding something. "Do you want to hear a truth?" I said nothing, but my silence was enough. He sat across from me, his eyes glinting in the firelight. "It's true," he said slowly, "that I've been unfaithful. True that she," his lips curved faintly, "means nothing more than convenience. True that I've called you Barren, again and again, not because I hated you." He paused, watching me, waiting for the flicker of hope to soften my face. "But because fear makes a better leash than love ever could." The words hit harder than I expected. For one moment, my chest clenched, my throat tight, as if some part of me had still hoped the cruelty had been madness, not design. My nails dug into my palms, but I kept my expression still. He tilted his head, studying me like a specimen. "There. A confession. You wanted honesty, and I've given it to you." I let the silence stretch, the crackle of the fire the only sound between us. Then I spoke, steady and cold. "That wasn't honesty. That was another weapon. Another lie wrapped in a ribbon of truth." His eyes narrowed. "You don't believe me?" "I believe you tell pieces. Never the whole." He laughed, though there was no humor in it. "And what will you do with your little pieces? Stitch them into a story? No one will listen. You're too fragile. Too desperate." I pulled my sleeve back just enough to reveal the corner of parchment pressed against my wrist. His gaze flicked to it, his smile tightening. "Ah," he said softly. "So you found that one." The physician's words. "Dangerous in the wrong hands." "In the right hands," I corrected, my voice low but firm. His jaw clenched. He leaned forward, resting his elbows on the table, his tone turning sharp. "You think that letter changes anything? It proves nothing but ink. And ink burns easily." I met his stare. My heart pounded so loudly I could feel it in my fingertips, but I forced my words out. "Ink doesn't burn when the truth has already taken root. They saw you shake last night. They heard the cracks in your perfect voice. And soon, they'll hear more." His hand slammed against the table, the sound echoing through the chamber. For the first time, his mask slipped fully, the fury raw and unpolished. "You will ruin us both," he hissed. "Do you think they'll forgive you once they know? You've been the symbol of weakness for years. You think a single letter will make them bow to you?" My body trembled, but not from fear anymore. "I don't need them to bow," I said softly. "I just need them to see." His breath came sharp, his teeth clenched. He leaned back, forcing a calm that looked like it might shatter at any second. "You're walking on a blade, wife. One wrong word, and it will cut through you first." I stood slowly, my hands no longer shaking. The firelight caught the edge of the letter, glowing faintly against my skin. "Then let it cut. At least I won't be silent anymore." His eyes followed me as I moved toward the window. Rain streaked the glass, my reflection staring back, thin, pale, trembling but alive with something stronger than I had ever felt. He thought he had given me a confession that would tether me again. Instead, he had handed me proof of how little his words were worth. I turned back to him, holding his gaze, my voice steady and final. "Your confession came wrapped in another lie. And when the world sees both, they won't doubt me. They'll doubt you." The color drained just slightly from his face. He tried to smile, but it faltered. For the first time, he didn't have an answer ready. The silence between us was sharp, hanging heavy until I broke it with a whisper. "By tomorrow, the leash will be around your neck." He stood abruptly, his chair scraping against the floor, but I didn't move. He left the room in silence, the door slamming behind him. I pressed my hand against the letter, my chest heaving. The storm outside roared louder, wind and rain pounding the walls. But inside, for the first time, I felt steady. His lies had been his greatest weapon. Now they would become mine. The council chamber was colder than the night air outside. High windows stretched to the ceiling, their glass panes dripping with rain, and torches sputtered against the damp. A long table cut through the center, polished wood gleaming under candlelight. He sat at the head of it, my husband, his shoulders broad, his voice carrying with practiced authority as men leaned in to listen. Around him, the empire he had built, the elders, the investors, the loyal families, all bent to his charm. I stood near the door, silent, my hands folded in front of me, my face unreadable. From a distance, he looked untouchable. His words were smooth, his gestures controlled, his smile flashing at just the right moments. He spoke of profits, of land secured, of debts paid. He painted a picture of strength. But I had been close enough to see the cracks. I had seen the tremor in his hand when he raised a glass, the flicker in his eyes when mine met his. And tonight, silence would be my weapon. The meeting stretched on, his voice commanding the room. I listened to each promise he laid out, each figure he spun from thin air. The ledgers had told me the truth, the hidden letter had given me proof. Everything he built was balanced on lies. And lies always shook hardest when no one rushed to defend them. At last, one of the elders spoke, his voice careful. "The accounts, they seem optimistic. Yet some numbers don't align." A ripple of tension flickered through the room. My husband smiled easily, leaning back as if unbothered. "Minor delays," he said. "Adjustments. Nothing worth concern." I stayed quiet, though every muscle in my body screamed to speak. Instead, I let the silence grow. I let my stillness pull their eyes toward me. They were used to me being invisible. But now, my silence was louder than any denial. The elder's gaze slid to me. "And you, wife? You keep the household books, do you not?" The air shifted. Dozens of eyes turned toward me, curious, waiting. My husband's smile tightened, just slightly. I held the elder's gaze, my voice calm but steady. "I keep what I am allowed to see." It was not accusation, not confession. But the weight of it sank into the room. Whispers stirred, low and uncertain. My husband's hand gripped the edge of the table, his knuckles white. "She is tired," he said quickly, forcing a chuckle. "Ignore her. She has always been fragile." I lowered my eyes, not in submission but in strategy. Let them think me fragile. Let them see the contrast when the truth came crashing down. Another elder cleared his throat. "There have been rumors," he said slowly. "About heirs. About the family line." The words struck like a blade. The room stiffened. My husband's smile faltered, then sharpened. Idle gossip, he said coldly. Jealous tongues wagging because they have nothing of their own. Still, no one laughed with him this time. The silence pressed tighter, the air thick with doubt. I raised my head, meeting no one's eyes directly but letting them all see my face, calm and unshaken. Rumors, I said softly, only grow when truths are hidden. A murmur spread. My husband's chair scraped sharply as he stood. Enough, he snapped, his mask cracking. She speaks out of turn. She doesn't understand the matters of men. But his anger landed wrong. It wasn't strength, it was desperation. And the room felt it. I stepped forward, just once, my gown whispering against the floor. My hands did not shake anymore. I didn't need to raise my voice. Silence had already done its work. If the empire is strong, I said clearly, why does it tremble at a woman's silence? The chamber erupted in whispers, sharp and urgent. Faces turned, eyes narrowed, suspicion spreading like fire through dry grass. My husband's face reddened, his chest heaving as he tried to seize control. But the weight of the silence that had followed him for years, the silence he thought meant weakness, now turned against him. He slammed his hand against the table, the sound echoing. You dare undermine me here? I looked at him, my voice steady as steel. I don't need to undermine you. You've done it yourself. The elders exchanged glances. The mistress's name whispered at the edges, debts and ledgers murmured like ghosts. Doubt had sunk in, and no amount of charm could wash it away. My husband stood frozen, his empire collapsing not with a shout, but under the weight of a silence he could no longer control. I turned away, my heart pounding but my face calm. For years, I had buried my pain, swallowed my cries, silenced myself for his power. Tonight, that silence had become his ruin. As I reached the door, I spoke once more, my words clear, final. The empire you built has fallen. And all I had to do was stay silent long enough for the truth to speak on its own. Behind me, the room boiled with whispers, his voice rising in fury, but it no longer mattered. The cracks had split wide. His mask had shattered. And nothing he said could piece it back together again. The chamber smelled of smoke and rain, the storm outside pressing against the windows like a warning. I sat near the fire, staring at the faint scars on my palms where broken glass had once cut through skin. They had healed into thin, pale lines, but I traced them anyway, remembering the sting, remembering the moment my reflection had shattered before everyone. Those scars had become my reminder. I could bleed, I could break, but I would never bow. The door opened without a knock. He stepped inside, shoulders squared, his face unreadable. For once he wasn't smirking. He looked tired, perhaps, or maybe just cornered. He closed the door quietly, as though sound itself might betray him. Then he moved closer, his gaze fixed on me with a strange softness I hadn't seen in years. Wife, he began, his tone calm, almost gentle. We've said things we didn't mean. Done things we can't take back. But tonight, I've come to make peace. I lifted my eyes from my hands, steadying myself. Peace? The word felt foreign on my tongue. He nodded, taking another step forward. The gala, the council, the whispers, they'd gone too far. You and I both know enemies wait for cracks. I shouldn't have given them yours. I shouldn't have spoken of you that way. He paused, watching me carefully. I'm sorry. The apology hung in the air, heavy and strange. My chest tightened, but not with relief. I studied his face, searching for sincerity, but the firelight caught the calculation in his eyes. He wasn't sorry for what he'd done. He was sorry he had lost control of the story. I leaned back, my voice quiet. You think words can mend what you broke? He sighed, lowering his shoulders, trying to look smaller, humbled. Not mend, perhaps. But we can start again. Let me make it right. Let me give you back your place. The words twisted in me, tempting, dangerous. A part of me, the part that had once loved him, that had once dreamed of a life not built on humiliation, wanted to believe it. But my scars told a different story. My scars told me the truth. Every apology he gave was a mask for the next betrayal. An apology, I whispered, does not erase scars. He stepped closer, lowering his voice. Scars can heal if you stop picking at them. Let them fade. Let us fade into peace. I stood, slowly, the firelight catching the edge of my gown. My hands trembled, but I didn't hide it. No. I won't let them fade. I chose to keep them, because they remind me of who you are. His jaw tightened, the softness slipping. And who am I? He asked, his tone sharp. I met his gaze without flinching. The man who cut me, then asked me to forget the pain. The silence between us grew thick, broken only by the storm outside. His mask cracked further, his smile twisting back into something cruel. You think keeping scars makes you strong? They make you pitiful. A woman clinging to wounds instead of moving on. I moved closer, each step deliberate, until I stood inches away. My voice was steady now, sharp as the lines on my palms. No. They make me dangerous. Because while you cover your lies with apologies, I wear my scars openly. And everyone who looks at me will see what you tried to hide. His breath hitched, just slightly, and I saw it again, the flicker of fear he couldn't bury. He tried to laugh, but it came out brittle. Do you think anyone will side with you? Even now, they call you weak. They call you barren. I lifted my sleeve, pulling free the folded letter, holding it between us. And this says otherwise. This says it was you all along. His face paled, his eyes darkening as he stared at the paper. His hand twitched, as if he wanted to grab it, burn it, erase it. But he didn't move. He couldn't. Not with my gaze locked on his, not with the storm outside roaring like a witness. You could have had my silence, I said softly, my words steady as a blade. You could have had my loyalty. But you chose to give me scars instead. And now I choose them over you. For a moment, neither of us moved. His face hardened, the last trace of apology slipping away. He turned sharply, his coat swirling behind him, his steps quick toward the door. But before leaving, he looked back once more, his voice low and bitter. You'll regret this. I held the letter close to my chest, my voice calm, final. No. You will. The door slammed, the store rattling the windows as if in agreement. I looked down at my hands, the scars pale against the glow of the fire, the letter warm against my skin. For the first time, I felt no urge to hide either. They were both mine, both proof of what I had endured, and what I was about to destroy him with. The dawn broke with a silence that felt heavy, as if the sky itself was holding its breath. I stood at the balcony of my chamber, watching the city stir awake. Merchants opened their stalls, servants hurried with baskets, children darted between stone streets. To them, it was just another morning. But to me, it was the end of everything he had built. My husband had ruled with charm and cruelty, weaving lies into a crown, my ribs. The door creaked open behind me. His steps were slower than usual, heavy, deliberate. He entered without a word, but I didn't turn. I kept my eyes on the city. His reflection joined mine in the glass, broad shoulders, dark eyes, the mask of a man fighting not to look cornered. Word travels fast, he said finally, his tone controlled, but not steady. The elders whisper. The families hesitate. They question what I promised them. I turned then, facing him. Because they've started to see the truth. His jaw tightened. They see what you want them to see. But you and I both know they'll forget by next week. I can still hold them together. I stepped closer, my gown whispering against the floor. Hold them with what? More lies? More laughter at my expense? The letter is in my hands now, not yours. His eyes flicked toward the desk, though I had hidden it well. That tiny glance betrayed him. He wanted it burned, erased, banished. But he knew it was too late. You think that letter will save you? His smile curved, brittle at the edges. It's just paper. They'll believe me before they ever believe you. I raised my chin, steadying my breath. Maybe once. Not anymore. They saw you shake. They heard you falter. The cracks aren't mine, they're yours. He moved fast, crossing the space between us, his hand catching my wrist. His grip was firm, but not steady. I felt the tremor in his fingers. You'll ruin everything, he hissed. The land, the name, the fortune, you'll drag us both down. I didn't flinch. My voice came low, sharp. No. You already dragged us down. I'm the one climbing out. His hand tightened, but only for a second. Then he released me, stepping back, anger and fear warring in his eyes. He turned to the balcony, staring out at the city, his shoulders heaving. I built this, he said. Every brick, every deal, every oath sworn under my roof, it all bears my name. I walked closer, standing beside him, my voice steady. And yet it will collapse under that same name. Because I've carried your ruin long enough. Now, I'll make sure the world sees it. He turned sharply, his mask slipping. You'd destroy me? I don't have to, I said, meeting his gaze. You already destroyed yourself. I'm only stepping out of the ashes. For a moment, he looked at me as if seeing me for the first time, not the broken wife, not the quiet shadow, but the woman who had endured, scarred and unbowed. His mouth opened, but no words came. The knock at the door broke the silence. A servant stepped in, bowing quickly. The council requests your presence, my lord. Urgent matters. He dismissed the servant with a wave, but his face betrayed the tension. He knew what awaited him there. The whispers had grown into questions, and questions would soon turn into demands. His empire was slipping. As the servant left, he turned back to me, his voice sharp again. If you speak against me, you'll regret it. I moved toward the desk, my fingers brushing the hidden pouch beneath my gown where the letter rested. My heart beat steady now, my resolve clear. No, I said softly. If I stay silent, I'll regret it. My rebirth begins where your kingdom ends. He froze, his face paling at the finality in my words. For once, he had nothing to say. No smirk, no insult, no twisted charm. Just silence. I walked past him, the door opening to the hall where servants paused, eyes wide as they watched me. Their gazes carried something new, not pity, not gossip, but recognition. They saw the shift. They saw who no longer bowed. Behind me, the storm of his ruin gathered. Ahead of me, the dawn stretched wide. And as I stepped into the light, I knew there was no turning back.